When I take people on ecotours to connect with orangutans and rainforest, I don't go to the places that have feeding platforms for orangutans. And I'm often asked the question, why is this the case? The reason being is orangutans are semi-solitary animals. They live spaced out in the forest. And although there is some flexibility when there's an increased food source, they can't cope with overcrowding conditions in zoos or around feeding platforms. And I see a lot of aberrant behavior and a lot of stress in orangutans that come to the feeding platforms where tourists often go and see orangutans. Now, this reduces their immune system, as stress does in humans. And the feeding platforms provide the ultimate petri dish, as it were, for disease transfer, where the orangutans may urinate or defecate on the platform, and then with competing with high stress and low immune systems, it's a perfect place for orangutans to catch diseases. And if you combine this with unfettered contact with humans which haven't gone through a screening process, there's a great opportunity to transfer diseases from people to orangutans, which ultimately isn't a good thing. The other aspect of these feeding platforms is that the people who work around them often end up having to rely on tourism as their primary source of income. So if that's the case, either consciously or subconsciously, to support their own self-interest, it doesn't make sense for those orangutans to become free and independent and leave the security or the food security of the feeding platforms. And therefore, you set up where people's personal self-interest is in conflict with ultimately the interests of orangutans. So it doesn't take much to fool ourselves into them thinking that the feeding platforms are a good thing. But ultimately, I don't think they are. And I think the best way for orangutans to be rehabilitated is away from ecotourism and see the orangutans in the wild like you should, and see the magnificence of them. And if you do have to feed orangutans through a rehabilitation process, you feed them individually in the forest, and so they can get the food supplements as part of a holistic plan that sees them returning to free and in the wild like they belong.